It's Dr. Ed Beyer. Today I'm going to be talking about autoimmune disease and what actually, three things actually have to occur before someone can have the genes to be expressed to have an autoimmune disease. Um, 1 out of 3 females will end up having an autoimmune disease at some time in their life, and 1 out of 5 males will also. Why is this happening? Well, the reason why is because there's so many more things in our environment that don't belong in our body that didn't even exist 20, 30, 40 years ago. So our immune systems are working harder than ever to handle all of these foreign things that are trying to get into our body. Now, the scientific literature shows that in order to have an autoimmune disease, first of all, you have to have a genetic expression. The genes have to be turned on to allow your immune system to start forming antibodies against your own tissue. Now, traditional medicine really has no answers for this. They will more than likely put people on immunosuppressants, things like Remicade, Humira, Enbrel, corticosteroids, things of this nature to try to handle the symptoms of autoimmune disease, the inflammatory concomitants with autoimmune disease, but this doesn't address the underlying causes. Now, these next two are what really are the underlying causes. Now, so the genes have to be expressed, and once they're expressed, you cannot turn them off, folks. So there is no cure for an autoimmune disease. But if you work on number 2 and number 3, you can put the autoimmune disease into remission. This is, from a functional medicine perspective, what we do in our clinic. And leaky gut syndrome, or a barrier compromise. Now look, before anything can get into our body, it has to go through a barrier. We know that if we cut our skin, that increases our chances for infection. And the reason why is because now we have a hole in our barrier system, okay? Or people who suffer severe burns, that they've lost their barrier between the outside world and the inside of their body, and the big concern there is infection. So now the biggest barrier between the outside world and the inside of our body is not our skin. If I took my skin off and ironed it out, it might cover about maybe 40 square feet. If the biggest barrier between the outside world is a 1-cell layer lining in our small intestine, the gut barrier, that is the biggest barrier between the outside world and the inside of our body. Look, when things are in our gut, which is just one long tube in the center of our body, they're still on the outside of our body. When things are in our gut, they're still on the outside. They have to get absorbed through the gut barrier into circulation before things are actually in our body. And so when that barrier becomes too permeable, when there's little microscopic holes in that barrier system, now we have a situation where things are making their way into the body, into the circulation, that normally would not make their way in. And our immune system has to react and get rid of them. I always use the analogy that having a leaky gut is like having holes in your screen door on a hot summer day. Things are going to start to make their way into the home that normally don't belong in the home, and you as the immune system might go around with a fly swatter trying to kill them all, whereas you could just fix the screen door. This gut barrier is so vitally important to protect us against our outside world. And I have not in my 30 years ever seen an autoimmune case where someone did not have leaky gut. This is all in the scientific literature. In fact, there's mountains of information on this that traditional medicine, rheumatology, does not even check for or look at. Leaky gut can be tested, and there's different types of it, and it can be fixed. Once we do that, we remove a severe load off the immune system, and then the autoimmune attacks start to diminish. So this is a huge component from a functional medicine perspective on getting people's lives back if they have an autoimmune disease. Now, the third one is what I cover in my workshop. There are known environmental and metabolic triggers that will also be the reasons why someone is suffering from an autoimmune disease. Now, we know that once we identify and remove these triggers, that individual starts to become healthy. Again, number 3 is not even looked at from a traditional medical perspective. But from a functional medicine perspective, that is absolutely crucial for us to be able to get someone suffering with autoimmunity into remission. Now, these environmental and metabolic triggers can be tested for, and they vary from person to person. I can have one individual with Crohn's disease and another individual with Crohn's disease, and their symptoms can be very close to each other or even identical, but what's triggering the one versus the other could be totally different. This is where specific testing is absolutely crucial. I cover exactly how we test for this in my workshop on autoimmune disease. So it's a little bit too long for our purposes of today. But some of the things that we will look for are food sensitivities, leaky gut, unstable blood sugar, poor adrenal function, which is a huge part of our immune system, the gut microbiome, which makes up 80% of our immune system. There's so much information now in the science that shows that if certain bacteria are overgrowing in our gut, that they will trigger autoimmune disease, things like rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and all of these different autoimmune diseases, of which there's over 80. So this is extremely important from someone who's suffering. It's information that I want to get out there. I'm Dr. Ed Meyer. I hope that helps. Have a great day.